Gather tonight to celebrate the start of this new ministry relationship. We're also celebrating, as Archdeacon Douglas mentioned, the memorial of Charles Simeon. And I'm always amazed when the lectionary readings fit so well with special events and services and celebrations. It's as if we were brilliant planners. But I can assure you clergy are not that organized. I think God just loves to surprise us. In our gospel reading, Jesus put some challenges out to the disciples and to us. So much wisdom in what Jesus does. If you want people to be open to hearing, you make sure they're not hungry and you don't wait for the drowsiness to set in. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Now, what is the these that Jesus is referring to? Peter has been out fishing with 6 other disciples throughout the night, but they caught nothing. And as they approach the shore, Jesus is standing on the beach, but they don't recognize him. He tells them to cast their net onto the right side of the boat, and he says, "You will find some fish." So they do, and they can barely pull in the catch. So is Jesus saying to Peter, "Do you love me more than having an abundance in life and an abundance in resources?" Jesus has just cooked this group of 7 fishermen breakfast. Perhaps Jesus is asking Peter if he loves him more than he loves his friends that are with him, or more than his friends love Jesus. In Matthew's Gospel, he reports that before Jesus died, Peter claimed that he loved Jesus more than the other disciples. They have all been through a great deal together. They have experienced great uncertainty. They walked through good times, and when everything appeared hopeless. It sounds like a lot like life in the church. And now, here they are, showered with abundance, enjoying a feast on the beach with Jesus, being called to answer the very uncomfortable question. Where does Jesus fit into the loves of our life? And it's a question we need to return to over and over again. We always need to renew our relationship with Jesus. When Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me more than these?" it's after he has helped them land a huge catch of fish and cooked breakfast and fed them. Now a similar thing happened when Jesus was first calling them to follow him. You might recall, in Luke's Gospel, he reports that a huge crowd had gathered on the beach one day, and so Jesus gets in a boat and sets off from shore a little bit so he can speak to the crowd. Now the fishermen had caught no fish that night, and Jesus tells them to throw the net in, and they get an immense number of fish again. Similar story to what happens here, just before the question, "Do you love me more than these?" But there are some differences between them. In this account, which is after the resurrection, Jesus is not physically in the boat with them, and they don't recognize him. That is an encouragement to the early church, and I think it's an encouragement to us as well. Jesus is proclaiming to them and to us, even if I am not physically present, and even if you don't recognize me, I'm still able to help you and work with you. What has Jesus been telling this group of fishermen? "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of people. I will build my church, my community, through you." What is the mission of the church? Well, in that definition, it's fishing for people. What does it mean to fish for people? My guess is most of you hear that and cringe a little bit because immediately you think of converting people and all the negative connotations that go with that. But it means way more than that. It's an invitation into a whole new way of being that is so radical. The word conversion is actually an appropriate word to describe it. Symbolism was significant to the ancient world. Symbolism is a profound way to communicate because you can say a great deal with very few words. In the ancient world, the sea was a symbol of chaos. It was cold and it was dark and it was unpredictable, and it was often the cause of destruction and death. Fishing, then, is taking something from one realm to another realm. In his letter to the Colossians, Paul talks about a transformation from the kingdom of this world to the kingdom of God's Son. He's saying he wants them to be a community of the King, a community under the lordship of Jesus. We don't just bring people into a personal relationship with Jesus. We invite people into a new community, a new way of being. Another symbol that Jesus uses to describe who we are and what we are to be is a city on a hill. We are to be an alternate city, an alternate community to the one in which we find ourselves living. To be an alternate community and city from what is around us. And if we are to do that, if the church is way more homogeneous than the community outside the church, then we missed it. How are we to be an alternate community in an alternate city? How are we to fish for people, to take them from one round to another round, from one community to another community, and another way of being? How are we to be different? That is something we all need to revisit and to revisit. Let me make a few suggestions. We are to be a community where money is not an idol, where looks and beauty are not an idol, where no matter what gender person is, we treat each other as people instead of objects, and where the beauty and the diversity of humanity is welcomed and celebrated and appreciated. In this little scenario, at the end of John's Gospel, where Jesus cooks them breakfast on the beach and asks uncomfortable questions, we get a glimpse into what an alternate community under the lordship of Jesus looks like. 7 of them had gone out fishing, and 4 names of those 7 are mentioned. Nathaniel and Thomas are in the boat. Remember Nathaniel? He is the one who Jesus said he saw him under the fig tree long before Nathaniel met Jesus, and Nathaniel's response to that is, "You are the Son of God." Nathaniel is quick to believe. He's maybe an over-believer, a keener. I'm sure you bumped into them. You are one. They relate to everything as if it's a divine intervention of God, even finding a nice close-to-the-door parking spot when they go to the mall. I've got a close friend like that. He is very annoying at times. Then there is Thomas in the boat with him. Thomas, who walked with Jesus through his entire earthly ministry. Thomas saw the miracles, saw Lazarus raised from the dead, yet won't believe the witness of the resurrection. Thomas, whose first reaction is to lean towards unbelief. It can be tiring being around someone like Thomas, constantly doubting. Generally, Nathaniel's and Thomas's don't get along. They almost hate one another, and they avoid each other. But here they are in the boat together. The other 2 that get named are John, the disciple who Jesus loved, and Peter. John is a thinker. When Jesus tells them to cast the net and they get this huge catch of fish, John turns to Peter and says, "It is the Lord." He thinks it through. He gets it. Peter, on the other hand, is quick to act, sometimes without thinking. He puts on his nice, dry clothes that he had set aside while they're fishing and then jumps in the water with the dry clothes on. It's a little bit impulsive. People who are quick to act can drive the thinkers crazy, and vice versa. Jesus creates a community where, outside of his lordship, people would not get along. They would not be friends with one another. So how do we accomplish creating such a community? When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter. Now they all hear this question to Peter. It's a very public question. Do you love me more than these? There is way more going on here than just do you love me more than your circle of friends. This was not simply a gathering of friends. This was a gathering of people called by Jesus who were all very different from one another. Jesus asked Peter the question 3 times. And yes, there is something very significant about Peter being asked 3 times, do you love me? When We have been told that Peter denied Jesus 3 times the night of his arrest. Each time Jesus says, "If you love me, feed my lambs." And what we all need and long for is to belong. There is good scientific evidence that says our need to be in relationship with each other, our need to belong, to have true friendship, is as necessary for our health and well-being as our need for food and exercise. We all need true friendship. A friendship that will not abandon us when we fail. To change the world, we have to be a true friend. To build an alternate community, a city on the hill, which is what the church is called to do, we have to be a true friend. To invite people to live in this new community, this new realm, we have to be a true friend. When Jesus is on the beach and calling out to them as ones that he cares for, he calls them friends. Some translations say little children, some just say children. He's using familiar, intimate language, addressing people who are close to him. Back in John chapter 15, Jesus tells them he's making them his friends. He's telling them what is on his heart, and that he's going to lay his life down for them. A true friend always lets you in and never lets you down. Are you open? Are you unconditionally there for others, or are they there for your use? Is your friendship for what you can get out of others, or for what you can impart to them? When we hear the word friend, we automatically think of those whom we have let into our lives. And we think, yeah, I know how to be a friend. Those who are already our friends. Those who we have chosen to be friends with. But Jesus tells Peter, feed my lambs. Feed. The relationship is not to get fed, but to feed. Feed my lambs. Those who are hungry. I don't know of anyone who has a lamb for a pet. Lambs require a great deal of care. Feed my lambs. Feed the ones I send to you, not just the ones you choose. We know how to make friends with people that we are attracted to and who we are interested in, the same things as us, and who have relatively low levels of need because we like it to be balanced. Jesus is saying to us, don't only look at people you have chosen, but look at the ones chosen for you by me. The ones the Lord brings into your lives. Are you willing to welcome his lambs? To be a friend, you need a friend. Friendship is taught. Friendship lets you know that you belong. We cannot tell ourselves that we belong. Somebody else has to welcome us and befriend us so that we know that we are welcome and that we belong. A perfect friend lets you in and never lets you down. A perfect friend fulfills you. A perfect friend loves you unconditionally. And this interaction between Jesus and Peter reveals to Peter and to us the unconditional love of Jesus. Jesus asks Peter 3 times if he loves him. He is saying, Peter, you know you failed me, therefore feed my lambs. Peter, you failed, therefore you're in charge. Peter, you failed me, but here I am welcoming you, feeding you, caring for you, loving you. I died for you, and in my resurrection I come to you to love you in your failing. We are more indebted to Christ than we thought, and more loved than we thought. The first time Jesus miraculously filled their nets with fish after they had caught nothing, Peter's reaction was to tell Jesus to get away from him because he was a sinful man. This time, when Jesus miraculously fills their nets after they caught no fish, Peter wants to get as close to Jesus as fast as he can. His pride has dissipated by the love and the mercy and the grace of Jesus. Freedom from the pride that destroys community comes from seeing who Jesus is, our true friend. If each of us are true friends, to just a few, we can build the community of Jesus. It is the witness of Charles Simeon, whose memorial we are celebrating, changing the world through friending people. The people Jesus brings into our lives. They might be people whose experience in life has taught them that they don't belong, that unconditional love is an illusion, a fairy tale. It is the work of the church. It is the call that is on all our lives. It is what we celebrate when we gather together to worship. That in Christ we are welcomed by God. We are nurtured and fed. We belong now and for all of eternity. May we welcome and love and befriend those that Jesus brings into our lives. May the Lord fill his church through